Hello everyone and a very warm welcome to today's tutorial. In today's tutorial we'll see how we can automate collecting of tabular data from a web page using Power Automate Desktop. My name is Clavin and I work as a technical consultant. You can find my blog at clavinfernandez.wordpress.com and my Twitter handle is @clavinfernandez. This particular video tutorial is based on my blog Web Scraping. In this blog, you can go ahead and find the prerequisites. Just remember, the first prerequisite would be to install Power Automate Desktop. Secondly, you need to configure the browser extensions. So remember, you can use any browser of your choice, Edge, Chrome or Firefox. Just make sure that you have the extensions for the browser configured. Other than that, you should have some knowledge about Power Automate Desktop and also Flow. You need to go ahead and configure the on-premise gateway. You need to run the flow in an attended or unattended fashion from cloud. Then you'll need this. If you're just going to use it with Power Automate Desktop, so it would not be a prerequisite, but we will run the flow from the cloud. Okay, we'll go ahead and invoke our Power Automate Desktop flow from the cloud. So that's very important. Finally, what's the scenario for this? Let's consider that your boss wants to keep a track of the gold prices for every day. Now you go ahead and do the work manually. Now you go to particular website, you go ahead and copy this tabular data, you copy it and you put it in an Excel and upload the Excel and maybe convert it into a PDF. Now you don't want to do that, right? You want to go ahead and automate this process. You want to save up some time. Now in this scenario it's just one site that you're going. Now let's consider that you also want to get gold prices, silver prices, etc. Now to do that it's going to be very difficult. Now let's consider you want the silver prices, maybe this as well, maybe in USD, maybe in other currencies. How much time consuming it will be. In this blog, we will address this problem. We will scrape the data that is in a tabular format using Power Automate Desktop. Okay, so that's the scenario. So without wasting any further time, let's go ahead and build our Power Automate Desktop or Power Automate Desktop flow. So I'm here in my Power Automate Desktop. I'll click on New Flow and I'll give this a name. Power Automate Desktop Web Scraping, and I'll click on Create. Now this will create a new Power Automate Desktop flow. So first thing, we would have to launch the browser. Correct? As I told you, there's a prerequisite, that is to go ahead and install the extension. Once you have the extension installed, you need to launch the browser. So I'll use the Firefox because I have the Firefox extension configured. Next step would be to tell the browser what URL you need to hit. So initial URL will be this particular URL, and window state, maybe you want it normal, maybe you want it maximized, or you want it minimized. We'll say keep it maximized. Advanced options, you can clear the cache, you can clear the cookies. Remember, this is the default thing. You should always keep it at wait to load. You want to load the page and only then you will be able to extract data from it. If there is a pop-up, how do you handle it? Using this drop down. For example, if you have a pop-up that comes up on the page, you can say close it or press a button or do nothing. For this scenario, I have not seen a pop-up coming up on that page, so we'll leave it at do nothing. You can set the timeout to 60 seconds or more depending on the complexity of the page. Now the browser is launched. The next step would be to extract data from the page, right? So let me launch the page first. I'll just open it in Mozilla. So this is the page that we are going to extract. We want to extract this particular tabular data. So I go back to Power Automate Desktop and type in extract. So we'll use web automation. Okay, we'll use web automation and we'll say extract data from a web page. So this is the action we need. So I'll drag and drop the action. If you see, this is what it tells from a single value, list, rows or tables. Here we have to pass in the browser instance. So we have already launched the browser and the output variable, if you look at it, is browser. we are launching it here. Now we can store the data in a variable, or we can store the data in an Excel spreadsheet. It totally depends on your requirement. For our particular scenario, we will store it in a variable. The reason being, we have to pass it to Power Automate or a flow. So what variable it will produce? It will produce the variable of the name data from web page. I'll click on save. Now you see, as soon as I click on save, it gives me an error. It tells me that extraction parameter cannot be empty. So again, launch it. Just go back to your web page and click on the web page. You see, as soon as you click on the web page, you have a recorder that comes up. This recorder will help us get the data. So I can right click here on the table and I can say extract entire table. And here you see all the data from this particular table is being populated out here. And how easy it was. Just one right click and that's it. I'll click on finish. Now when I click on save, that error should go away. So I think we have launched the browser, we have extracted the data. Finally, what we want to do, we want to close the browser. So I can say close web browser. I'll just drag it here, and which instance I want to close, the browser instance. I'll click on save. Now this is all good. Our scenario is done, but this needs to be automated from flow, okay, from the cloud flow. So let's consider the scenario that I want to make this variable dynamic. Okay, so maybe the user can type in 4, so he gets the 4th month results. Maybe he types in 1, then he gets the results for January, maybe 2. So to do that, he needs to pass the data from the cloud flow. So just remember, if you need to pass the data from the cloud flow to Power Automate Desktop, you need to define input variable. So I'll click on input. So if you see, the variable type is input and we need to give this variable a name. So let's give this variable a name such as month number. You can go ahead and specify the data type. In this case, we'll leave it as text. You can also specify sensitive data types such as passwords, etc. In that case, you'll use sensitive data type. We'll not give it a default value, and here I'll say month number. We'll leave the description blank. So this is the input variable. Now in this particular action, we'll change this 5 with the input variable that we have defined. So the input variable is month number, right? So I'll just click on save. So good, we have passed the data in, but what we need to do is we also need to pass the data out, or pass the data to the cloud flow. So to pass the data to the cloud flow, we need to define an output variable. So the output variable name, I'll just specify it like, let's keep it simple and easy, pad table, and I'll click on create. Now I have specified pad table out here, right? So input variable is defined, output variable is defined. Finally, I need to assign my output variable pad table to data from web page variable. So the data from web page variable holds the tabular data that we have extracted from the web, and that is what we need to pass it to our cloud flow. Yeah, set variable. We can use the set variable action. We'll add it above the close web browser action, and set the pad table variable to data from web, and click on save. So this is our Power Automate Desktop flow. So let's save our work. I'll just click on save. It's saving the flow. In the meantime, I go to the cloud in the browser and I click on create. Now for this scenario, let's use an instant flow. I'll just click on manual trigger. So before we add the action, we need to pass the month number, right? So I'll just type in text. I'll type in month, and we'll leave the input just like that. Next thing, we need to invoke our cloud flow. So as I told you, the prerequisite would be to go ahead and have the Power Automate gateway configured. Okay, if you don't have the gateway, this would not work. So here you see, you can have this action known as Power Automate run flow built with Power Automate Desktop. If you have it configured, you will always see this particular. I'll click on this. You see this is giving me an error, but the error will go away because I have it configured correctly. And here you can say the run mode, attended or non-attended. If I click on attended, I would need an attended license. Just remember that. If I need run it unattended, I would read an unattended license. Okay, the difference between attended and unattended is user does not need to sign in if it's going to be unattended, and for attended the user needs to sign in. And if you see, is requesting me the month number variable. The month number variable was the input variable. If you remember out here, you see this month number is the input variable that we defined. So here I am going to pass in the month number. Month number will come from the manual trigger. I'll just type in month number. Perfect. So next what I want to do, I want to go ahead and convert this file into a PDF. Let's consider my boss does not want anybody to edit it. So the best format would be to have it as a PDF, right? So I'll use the Muhembi action and I'll say convert document. Here I can give it a name. So I'll just hard code it for this particular example, something like gold.txt. We can give it as a txt format, and you see pad variable, this is the output that is being passed in by Power Automate Desktop. So pad variable is defined. Now next, Muhembi actions can also be used to watermark. So what if we add a watermark as well? Let's add a watermark. So the source file content will be the processed file content. Watermarking text. So watermarking text would be, let's add the name of the site, saying that prices from this particular site. We'll just set the font family as Arial, maybe font size as 24, middle center, and we'll specify the width as maybe 550 by 550. Source file is optional, we don't need it. Including rotation, we can give it an angle, that's also optional. I'll give it -45. Opacity, we can set it at 50%. Opacity means how dark or light the watermark is. So we leave it at this. So text watermark is configured. Finally, we will create the file. So create the file back into SharePoint, and I'll create the file in demo data, SPS demo data. I'll give it a folder path. I'll say PDF file. I'll give this a name. Let's create the dynamic name. So I'll use convert action, and I'll use processed file content output from the convert action, and then I'll append it with maybe the month number, and I'll say .pdf, and file content would be the file content of the add text watermark action. I'll give this a name. I'll say PA test, Power Automate Test, and I'll click on save. So create a template. Okay, I'll just see what the error is. Invalid connection, it tells me for some reason here. So let me try to specify this again. So now it tells me authorized. I click on flow checker. I don't have an error. I'll click on save. So I had to re-enter my password for some reason, but yeah. So let's go ahead and see it in action. So let's consider I want a report for February. I'll just type in 2. So here you see it automatically launched the browser. Desktop out here. It's trying to extract the data. I think it already extracted the data. So let's see. So here it's still, yeah, it extracted the data automatically. I'm using an attended flow. Now it should convert a file to PDF, and then it should add a text watermark, and it should create a file. So the create file failed because workflow input is not valid. Let's quickly check. What did I do wrong? Okay, passing the processed file content, which is absolutely wrong. I need to pass in the base file name. Okay, so base file name, save it again, run, and done. So this time I'm not touching anything. I think it already launched the browser. Yeah, we invoked the flow from Power Automate Cloud. It launched the pad, that is Power Automate Desktop. It went ahead and did its stuff, and now it's gone back to Power Automate. Convert action. working fine. Adding text watermark, and this time it created a file. So if I go back here and if I refresh, yes, goal 2, and here you see you have the prices, you have the watermark, and you have it as a PDF. So isn't this awesome? You have just extracted tabular data from Power Automate Desktop. I think that is pretty much it, and thank you for listening, and I hope this session was informative. Bye bye.